Hi everybody, welcome to today's edition of the CrossFit Games Update Show. I'm Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez and Pat Sherwood. We continue to break down the team side of the competition at the 2015 Reebok CrossFit Games. Yesterday we talked about the three super teams. The teams we're talking about today, definitely super, we just don't know as much about them as we do those other three.
And just because somebody, was in the limelight is by no means, means they're going to run away with the whole thing and take the cup. Sometimes it's good not to have that spotlight on you.
Yeah, the other three teams have really drawn a lot of attention to themselves, while there's a handful of teams that we're going to talk about that have really kind of worked their way into the conversation of maybe, taking the affiliate cup down.
Yeah, and first and foremost, we have to talk about the defending champions, and that's Invictus. They won the affiliate cup last year. They did battle to get into the top 5 at regionals this year all weekend long, but they did get there. They've made some roster changes. Coach CJ Martin has changed half of his roster heading into the games, but he still expects his squad to be very competitive.
We added 3 solid athletes. Brian Miller had to sit out the Open and regionals with a shoulder injury, but he's a 2013 individual games competitor, a member of our team last year. We never look too much at the leaderboard, but we think we've got a phenomenal group of athletes. Both physically and their character. They've been there, they're experienced. Every one of our athletes has been on the competition floor at games. So, we expect them to represent themselves really well.
With the additions now that CJ Martin has made to his team, it would be foolish for us to just say, well, we're just going to hand the championship to another team. They have a really good chance of defending this thing now.
Absolutely. They bring back all 3 men from the competing roster at the games last year. They bring back 3 of their 4 women from the roster, with the 4th different being Lauren Fisher, of course. But now they've now qualified for 7 straight CrossFit Games. They've taken 2 5ths, a 4th, a 7th, and their first ever podium appearance last year by winning. They never made the podium before winning, but they had 5 top 3 finishes last year, the most of any team at the games. Their worst finish at the games was 27th. That was the best out of anybody in the top 10. They're so well-rounded. They're so familiar with one another for having competed together for so long. They're absolutely a contender.
And a roster change this late in the season could potentially be a mistake, but not when the people added to the roster are such as Rasmus Anderson, who competed on the team last year when Invictus won it all, and then had a great competition as an individual athlete down in California this year, where he took 8th place. And the other addition is Lauren Fisher, who had a rookie debut last year at the games, took a top 10 finish, and then hobbled around regionals on a busted up ankle, still took 12th. So add that to an Invictus team that took 4th place without them, and they're going to be a force.
Yesterday, the 3 teams that we talked about all won their regionals. There's 5 others out there that won their regionals as well and certainly deserve to be in the conversation when we talk about teams that could wind up on the podium at the games. You have Pro 1 Montreal, Terminus, they looked really good. In the Meridian Regional, CrossFit solid. In the Pacific, Schwartz's CrossFit Melbourne had a great regional there. And then in the West, Lane 5. Out of those 5 teams, who do you think has a chance to push for one of those top 3 spots?
Lane 5 Athletics, they're jumping off the sheet at me. They were first place out at the West Regional. They won, 6 out of 7 events were top 5 finishes, including 2 event wins. And after a couple finishing day 1 and 2 in 4th place, they won both events on the final day on Sunday, jumping into first place. And they beat out some big name teams to occupy first, the likes of CrossFit Marysville, Fort Vancouver, and Team Tirana. So they're no joke.
What about for you, Tommy? Who do you think out of those 5?
For me, it's a team going back to the games for their 2nd time, and that's Pro 1 Montreal. They're 18th last year in the 2014 games, which is the highest ever for a Canada East team, actually. They returned 5 athletes from their games roster last year. They won their regional on the back of 6 top 5 finishes in 7 events. They won 2 events as well. Outside of their first 2 events last year at the games, where it took a 39th and a 36th, they really had a pretty solid rest of the games. They finished with an 11th, 7th, and 9th to close out the weekend. And I think with another year of experience, they won't necessarily have those first couple event jitters that they had at the games last year. I really think they can make a push for maybe even the podium, and I think they're a lock for top 10.
Let's talk dark horses here for a second, because there are some teams that didn't win their respective regionals but still deserve to be taken seriously now at the CrossFit Games. Who do you think that could be?
Well, I was extremely impressed with CrossFit 808. These people have competed at the games before, and out at the California Regional this year, they took 2nd. They were really the only team even remotely close to NorCal, and that's really saying something. Add to an already impressive roster, Dakota Rager, and last year they took 10th at the Games. They competed in 2013 as well. Elise Umeda, who's competed in their team for several years, and she has a history of competing as an individual athlete, turns this whole squad into a real threat.
And for me, my pick is a team that I actually picked to win the Games last year, and they were a podium team from last year. That's CrossFit Marysville. They were 3rd overall in 2015. They were actually 1st place going to that final event, but remember it was worth double points, so there was a big swing there down to 3rd. They have 3 individual Games athletes on their roster. They had 8 top 10 finishes in 13 events, and really what stood out to me is the variety of events that they excelled at. They took 2nd in the Big Bob, 4th in the men's chipper, 5th in the squat burpee, and they won the worm sprint. So it didn't matter if it was a new apparatus or some Games exclusive programming, or even the men's chipper, which is like a classic CrossFit style workout. They excelled at all of them, and that's really what you need to try and win the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, and if you're going to Carson, you're not going to want to miss any of the team competition. It will be the best one that we have had thus far at the Games. That's going to do it for us for today. For Pat and Tommy, I'm Sean. We're back next week to start to take a look at the individual side of competition for the 2015 Reebok CrossFit Games.